tonight's session, and we'll make it available on our new YouTube channel. And then we'll update our Eventbrite for the series tomorrow with dates for both October and November. But with that, I'd like to bring in Ben Dietrich. Ben is our lead from Bank of America here for the presentations. And Ben, I think you have the PowerPoints that you'll be loading up and taking over the screen. Ben is a U.S. Army veteran and led our first webinar, and we're excited for tonight's webinar titled or aimed at college students and really planning for college. So this should appeal both to college students as well as families who are preparing and planning for children to go to college. So with that, Ben, you want to take it away?
Sure thing. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, perfect.
Great. All right. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to come and talk to you. I'm here with my partner, Stu Burns, and we are going to be talking about college, kind of geared more towards parents as they prepare their kids for college. Here, make sure I can go next. There we go. Again, we're from Bank of America, and we are part of the Veterans Network, and part of that is the Better Money Habits group. So our goal is to help individuals and families take positive steps to really better their financial lives. And being part of the military, the veterans group, we're focused mostly on veterans or current and future military and those that support us. So again, my name is Ben Dietrich. I am a veteran myself. I did 6 years active duty as a logistics officer and got out in 2017. Unfortunately, Peter is not able to join us tonight. He's not feeling well, but we do have Stu. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, Stuart Burns, and honored to be here with you today. And really passionate about what we're talking about with financial literacy. I was in the Marine Corps, 8 years active and reserve from 1985 to 1993, and also in Desert Storm. And that lists a couple of my MOSs there, including combat engineer, recruiter, and bulk fuel specialist to end out my my tour there. Yeah, I've been with Bank of America about 20 years now.
Thanks, Stu. And I'll give the same kind of disclaimer that I gave last time if you were here for that one. We cannot offer any specific financial advice to the group here because we're not certified financial planners. And, it's not our goal. Our goal, although we work for Bank of America, is not to sell you anything. We're simply here to give some basic financial advice and guidance. That being said, if there is, if you do want to talk to somebody about your specific scenario and how you can set yourself up for success, we have our contact information on the last slide. You can reach out to us and we will put you in touch with a certified financial planner that can talk to you about your own specific scenario and help improve your finances. We don't get any kind of financial kickback, anything for that, but just want to offer that if you are interested in getting set up with someone that can help you with your own individual situation. All right, today we're going to talk about, we're going to do a brief review of budgeting, because I know we spent a lot of time on that last time. We're going to talk about cost considerations for college. We're going to talk about how to get ahead financially for college. We're going to, again, briefly talk about credit and credit card review, because we went into depth with that last time as well. And then talking about financing and paying off student loans. One topic that we're not going to talk about tonight is 529 savings plans. And that is because that is going to be discussed in depth in either our next or in the fourth session that we have. So if you have questions about 529 savings plans, we didn't forget about that. We're just not going to dive deep into that today because we're going to cover that in a future session. Hey, if you have questions as we go through this, go ahead and raise your hand, and we can answer questions as we go along. If not, we have time at the end built in for questions if you have those. So just wanted to point that out. All right. Again, we talked about budgeting last week, so we're not going to go through in depth how to set up a budget. We're going to talk about the difference in what's different with a budget now that you have a child who is going off to college, right? So again, start with your income. We're going to assume that your income hasn't changed. But the student, their budget, what is their income? We're going to talk about ways that they can, earn a little bit of income themselves coming up, whether that's through a part-time job, a summer job, or if you're helping them out financially just for, in addition to tuition and room and board, et cetera. If you haven't talked to your kids about how to do a budget, this is a really good time to do that. Because if you have, it's going to be put to the test, because just like everything else with college, they're out on their own for the first time. They're not going to be having, someone there to kind of give them such a strong guiding hand. So budget is probably going to be really tough for them. So something that you should help out with if you're able to do that, making sure that they have a budget in keeping on track. Expenses. So first question is, who's paying for what? What are you paying for? What is the student paying for? But obviously, your expenses and the student's expenses are about to change pretty drastically. Your budget, your monthly household budget, your monthly bills are probably going to go down, right? Because you got somebody presumably out of the house. So less food from the grocery store, less electricity, all that stuff. So that's good news for you, right? Your monthly bills are probably going to go down a little bit. What about the student's budget? What expenses do they have? Obviously, in addition to tuition, housing, meal plan, and it's college, right? So they're probably going to want to have a little bit of money to go out with friends and have some fun, because that's part of the reason that they go to college, right? Is to do that. So they're going to want to save a little bit of money so they can do that as well. Setting goals.
Apologies, I think we lost Ben, but he looks like he's getting back on there.
Yeah, looks like it should be connecting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you guys hear me yet?
Yep.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I am not sure what happened there. Let me get the presentation back up. Okay. So sorry about that. All right, let's continue. We're talking about goals, right? Because goals are definitely going to change because you have less to put into college savings. So that goal is going to diminish or go away entirely. So what are your goals now? Are you going to focus on retirement? Are you going to, celebrate your freedom by going on a vacation? You're going to focus on paying off the house. So you get to reevaluate your goals and your budget that way. As far as the student goes, they should probably focus on setting up a little bit of an emergency fund, a little bit of savings for after college, in case there's any gap between graduation and them getting a job. So help them, focus on that goal too, along with, all of the current, have fun money. Otherwise, they're going to be back in with you after graduation, right? All right. Any questions on budget before we move on to talking about cost? All right. Yep. Let's talk about cost. Try not to act shocked when I tell you that college is expensive, and it's only going to get more expensive, right? The average cost of a four-year school is $88,000 over 4 years. And honestly, it's not unrealistic to think that that could double or nearly double in the next 10 years. So plan for that, right? It is expensive and it's going to continue most likely to be very expensive. So things to consider. We talked about a 2-year school, a 4-year school. Do you start off for a couple of years at a community college and then transfer to a state school? Do you go to a state school? Do you go to a private school? Obviously, all of those are going to have a very big impact on how much it costs for your student to go to college, in state versus out of state, right? Being military, we have a little bit of advantage here because your student can go to they can get in-state tuition in the state that you're currently in, as well as your state of residence. So a little bit of a benefit there that they can take advantage of. But obviously, we all know that in-state is going to be significantly cheaper. Are they going to be living on campus, or are they going to be living off campus? Some schools offer discounts if you commit to living in the dorms for 2 years. I know that my school did, and I did that. So another thing to consider if they're looking to live off campus, you might want to consider pushing them to live on the dorms. Plus, you get that college experience living in the dorms, right? All right. We talked about community college a little bit. Even if you don't go to a 2-year community college to start, a lot of the gen eds can be knocked out through community colleges, either over the summer or over the winter break. So all of those gen ed classes that you have to take, you can get those for significantly cheaper if you do them over the summer or when you can. Just knock some of those out. Scholarships, right? Unfortunately, we can't all be as athletically gifted as I wish that I was. But if your student can get an athletic scholarship, that's great. Take advantage of that, or any other kind of scholarship. That should weigh heavily on their decision on which school they want to go to, if one is offering a scholarship or a bigger scholarship. We're going to talk about field of study and long-term career prospects on this slide. All right, so hey, if your student is super passionate about underwater basket weaving or left-handed puppetry, that is really great. Those can make great hobbies, but sometimes it is difficult at 18 years old to understand that no matter what you get your degree in, if you are getting a Bachelor of Arts degree, it's going to cost that same $88,000 that we talked about on the previous slide, whether you get your degree in left-handed puppetry or if you get it in engineering. Maybe nudge them in the right direction here. If they are truly, obviously, underwater basket weaving and left-handed puppetry is a joke there. But we all know that there are definitely majors and career paths that are going to pay a lot better. So if you do have a student that has always been super interested and passionate about something like art, right? Whether that's theater, ceramics, what have you, and they really want to major in that, you maybe have a conversation with them and say, hey, that's great. We're going to support you. but maybe you need to double major or get a minor in something like business or marketing, right? Because if you know they have a successful career even in something like art, they're going to need a business side or a marketing side to that, right? To really get their feet off the ground and in order to start making some money. So have those conversations with them, and don't deter them from doing what they're passionate about, but maybe push them to taking some classes that are going to help them have a better chance of being financially successful. Probably shouldn't be a surprise to anyone here that the highest starting salaries by major are those in the STEM field. So computer science, engineering, and in math and sciences, right? So I don't think that that's going to be a big shock to anyone here. So if your student is interested in that, definitely something to encourage them to do. Side note here, as we're talking about, starting salaries by major, we all know that there's careers, I think of teachers is the one that comes to mind, that if you want to be a teacher, it's going to require a degree and probably in most cases an advanced degree. It's never going to show up on this list of being the highest paid college major. So if that is something that your student definitely wants to do, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Help them. I would encourage that, and I would encourage you to help them set up a realistic budget to make that dream of theirs come true, and have those conversations about how they're going to manage money in that career field. All right. Any questions before we move on? All right. So regardless of what your major is, there's a couple great ways to get ahead here in college. And the first one that we're going to talk about is internships. So internships have basically two big benefits, right? The first one is resume building and networking. So you're going to put this on a resume, and you're going to network. And a lot of these, as you can see down there at the bottom, a lot of these internships turn into salaried jobs once they graduate. So networking there, and even if it doesn't, if you have a successful internship, that's something that you can put on your resume and help you get a job at a different company once you do graduate. It's also a great way to make money, right? Most internships are paid. The earlier that you do, another benefit is the earlier that you do an internship that is in your career field, then the better, right? Because it could turn out that career field or that company that you thought would be really great to work for maybe isn't as glamorous as it appeared looking at the outside, right? So if that's the case, and you do an internship, the summer between your sophomore and junior year, and it turns out that you really don't like this career field as much as you thought, that gives you plenty of time to pivot to something else, right? And keeps you on track for, a 4 or maybe 5 year, path to graduation. So definitely lots of benefits to doing an internship. Alternatively, you could just go get a paycheck, right? Because, for whatever reason, maybe, can't get an internship or there's not one that you're really interested in. Or if you're a freshman or sophomore that maybe can't get those internships yet, or if you just decide that an internship isn't for you, you can make money, and sometimes more money than the interns, by just going and getting a job, right? There's tons of jobs for college kids, a lot of them on campus, right? So if they're looking for a job to do throughout the school year part-time, tons of on-campus jobs for them to do. And obviously being a student, you still typically get summers off if you're not taking classes over the summer. So you could, work a lot of hours over the summer, save up that money, and then, have more time for studying or what have you during the academic year. Benefits to going and getting a job rather than an internship. It gives you the flexibility, right? It gives you the flexibility to choose any available job. It doesn't have to be in your desired career field. And it still shows, work ethic. Having jobs like this still show up show good on a resume. It gives you all of those soft skills, right? Because if you go off and you have a job, you're obviously going to be demonstrating those skills like communication, work ethic, all of those soft skills that you really can't put stuff like that on a resume typically. But if you have a job that you had, over 3-4 years over college, that obviously says a lot about you as an employee. All right, let's talk about that box there at the bottom, because some of us, are going to cringe perhaps at the idea of being a YouTuber or an influencer or anything like that, and maybe with some good reason. But truth be told, there's benefits to doing that. If that's something that they're interested in. Biggest one, it teaches entrepreneurship, right? If your student ever wants to start their own business or anything like that, that's basically what being a YouTuber or influencer is. It's going to teach you a lot of those entrepreneur skills. Part of that is marketing, right? You got to be able to market yourself to be successful in that. So that's definitely a skill that they would learn by doing that. Definitely going to teach them the technical side. Remember, we talked about the highest paying jobs by major or those ones in STEM. So it's going to, give them an introduction to the technical side of how some of that stuff works. And you know what, realistically, it might teach them about how to fail and the importance of failure and having resilience and picking themselves back up, because, we all know that not everyone can be the next, I don't know who the famous TikTokers are, but, we know that there's a fairly small chance of them having a lot of financial success doing that. But if it's something they're interested in, it can teach them, all of the lessons about resiliency and how to pick themselves back up and do better next time. One other thing, if we're talking about, doing this influencer and YouTuber thing, it's going to teach them, and something that you should definitely encourage and help them understand, is the importance of privacy and security, right? Because that is definitely something that they should learn very quickly if they're going to be putting themselves out there on the internet. So another very real world useful skill to have is how to protect your online identity. So. All right. Any questions before I pass it on to Stu?
All right.
No? All right.
Yeah. Yeah, glad to jump in and just continue on with the ideas that Ben was building on here too. So when you're thinking about like different ways that you can coach your college age child there and help them to get a head start. Again, we were just talking about some of the different things like internships and so forth. And then this is another one, just by getting the skills that they need to show that they're leaders and that they can develop that'll be applicable in any kind of situation that they're in. So one of them is getting involved. So just like internships will expose you to the different kind of business aspects that you may want to see before you jump into a career. Getting involved in itself, and just building the people skills and the network is completely valuable thing that you'll have going through life. As a matter of fact, like Ben said in the very beginning, we're at Bank of America, we have very volunteer networks, and the whole point is that you have people with commonalities that can be together and support things that they find important to them. So for us, it would be helping veterans coming from the military side, and that's exactly like you would want to be trying to get through to the student. Again, is during your college stay, you may want to participate in different things like extracurricular activities. There's sports or different kind of clubs that you could be joining while they're in college. They have different professional groups that range from everything, again, from just like fun things to could be related to the major as well, like pre-law, pre-medical, those kind of organizations. And then you also want to just kind of emphasize the point of meeting the people and building that network. I still actually am in contact with a lot of the people that I met through college. And then also some of the people that I've helped mentor since I've been with Bank of America. We stay in contact, and I help them as well while they're going through college. So those kind of contacts and networks that they're able to build, extremely important. And it also is going to allow them to the next point to gain leadership experience as well. So through some of these different organizations that they may want to be part of, they could also take on roles of leadership within those organizations. And this is even good before even getting to the college level. So if you're building that as your child is growing, and telling them that maybe the little side things like take part in student government, or get involved in something while they're growing up too. Those kind of things actually can come down and make a big difference. I happen to know for sure that made the difference, I think, between one person that I know getting into Annapolis and not getting into Annapolis, is because they were lacking in just that one small, what seems like a trivial thing of being in a leadership position before applying for the academy. But that ended up being actually a decisive factor. So those are the kind of things that really can be important. But leadership is something that as well, just come from the military. And I'm sure most of you know too, that is something that we can go into almost any employer, including Bank of America. And they know that you're coming from the military, and they can almost make the assumption right away that your leadership skills are probably, pretty advanced, I should say, like in comparison possibly with like the civilian peers, because you're going to come into this without being able to, let's say, translate some of your MOS skills. You can actually at least come in and say, well, you know what, I've been a leader in the military for this amount of years in these different positions. So that in itself carries a lot of weight of knowing that. So again, something great to be able to communicate to your college students as well.
I know.
Yep.
I know we don't have this on the slide, but just something that I thought of. But if ROTC is something that they're interested in, if they want to follow on in the military, suggest ROTC. Even if they don't have a scholarship for it, the first year they can get picked up for a scholarship. As that goes on, that's definitely going to help them financially, as well as obviously setting them up for financial success in the future. So.
Yeah, fantastic. We're gonna switch gears now, and we're gonna jump into credit card review and talk about credit cards. So now this is gonna apply again for both the parent and the student, because there's different aspects of this. But one of the things that you want to actually know yourself, and then also make sure your student knows, is the difference between the different kind of credit cards out there. So your standard credit card, something that you can use, you go out, you charge, you're gonna then have a minimum payment due at the end of the month. Premium credit card, something like maybe like Amex or one of the premium ones that you would probably have to pay for annual fee, almost without question. But you're gonna get some little perks that go with that. Then there's reward credit cards, which you can kind of use as well. If you understand what the rewards are, you can use them to your advantage, whether it's travel or cash back. Private label store credit cards, whatever the local retailers like close to you are, whether it be like I'm gonna again kind of date myself by saying like companies like Sears, Montgomery Wards, JC Penney's. But those used to be some of the primary retail cards. And as a matter of fact, Sears was actually an extremely hard one to get for a first card a long time ago. But those typically come with extremely high interest rates as well. Then you have your affinity cards, and this is the one that the college students are going to definitely be saturated with. So you go to any kind of sporting event in college, without question, you're going to see one of the pop-up tents there is probably soliciting them for credit cards. So you can get your favorite credit card with, for me, going to Arizona State with Sparky on the credit card, or, the ASU logo. So you're going to be able to get something like that. And sometimes it's actually a good thing. So you may consider it. The benefits are they typically will give a little portion back. The merchant, like Bank of America, if we sponsor it, will give a little bit back to whoever the affinity is, like the college or sporting team, or whoever the affinity is with. And then the last one is a fantastic one that you really want to probably understand too, for especially for college students wanting to build their credit, and that is a secured card. And that is actually where you would go in and you do put down a little bit of money into a savings account. And then you have a credit card that will work like the standard credit card, except it's only going to be at that smaller limit of whatever you've put into into that savings, so to speak. So that way, if there was ever any issue, the bank wasn't being paid, they will take that money that's in that secured deposit area. But it is a fantastic way to build credit, because what happens then is if the student then is showing that they're handling it well, making their monthly payments when they use it, then it will eventually graduate to the standard credit card and have all the privileges and so forth. So some of the considerations to the right, as you see, annual fees. Do you want a card with annual fees, or do they want, would they be able to afford it? The percentage rate, I kind of mentioned that those private label store cards, very high percentages. But in addition, you may want to look at, even with your standard credit card, different kinds of purchases can fall into different levels of APRs. So you're going to pay a higher percentage for a cash advance, is one of the examples they give there, than let's say you would maybe with gas. So that's something that you want to understand while you're reading the statement, or teaching your student to be able to read the statement. What exactly each of those breakouts are, and how they actually, even when they make payments, how they're going to be applied. And typically the highest interest rate will be the first one that gets paid. So that's actually a good thing in the credit card user's favor, to pay down the highest interest first. The next one is any kind of additional fees. Sometimes for the cash advance, there could be additional fees. And then also penalties, and so forth, late fees, if you miss a payment. And then one of the big things, again, that Ben was touching on, and this is a huge thing that is a little bit of in my realm with the bank. But we're talking about identity protection, the fraud protection, and some of the credit cards actually will have some guarantees that go with it. So Bank of America, for example, if you have a charge that you didn't make, you can call up, dispute it, and Bank of America will put that to the side, and then they won't hold you responsible as long as the the investigation that they look for and kind of proves it's not you, or there's nothing to prove that it was you, I guess would be a good way to say it too. So Bank of America won't hold you responsible for those charges. And some of the other major banks do the same exact thing. So that's actually a good thing that you'd want to know. The last one being the rewards, discounts, warranties, rebates. Now, this is something that can go both ways. So for you, let's say you being a parent, you may choose to put some charges for your student, like if you're paying for any kind of helping them move, get set up, any kind of items they might need for college, you may want to actually run that through a reward card as well to either get the cash back, or maybe you just want to get the travel points, but you're going to pay it off. And you have the money, let's say, set aside, but you may choose to go ahead and use your credit card because it's going to have some of those other perks that go with it. So you may be able to get airline tickets, hotels. If you have one of the travel rewards, you may actually just get your cash back so that you're not spending as much as well. So for the parent, that could be actually pretty beneficial for you too. And then for the student, you want to just make sure that they're aware of it, that they can be getting those same type of rewards as well. Can jump to the next slide. And one of the big things too, just to kind of keep in mind, and again, this is a double-edged sword. So for the parent, you want to think about this is one of the ways that obviously you can also start credit. We mentioned the secured card, but another way would be is if you're putting your student on your credit card and they're starting to build. But one of the things you want to keep in mind is while you're doing that, it will help them build credit. If they're an authorized user, technically you're the one who's responsible, but it will also start building a credit profile for them. So that's a good thing. But you also want to make sure that you're aware of any kind of effects that can happen to your score. If, let's say, you trusted them to make all the payments and they're not making those payments, then it could be affecting your credit score. And then if you co-sign, that's a whole different animal too, because if you're open a joint account, or you're a co-signer, then you're actually, more or less saying that you'll let them be fully responsible, but you're also going to be responsible with them. So that in itself can expose you to actually some of the things that could happen if for some reason the bills weren't paid. So you see there on the left some of the things you want to be cognizant of, and just make sure that this is when if you're teaching some of the aspects of credit with your student, you're going to want to make sure that they know 35% of it is based on how you pay. So make sure you're always making your payments on time. And then the other 30% is on the amount you owe. So what that means is we take your overall credit open to buy, so to speak, or the total amount of credit you have. And then we also are going to look at how much you owe in comparison. So generally a good rule of thumb is never to go, you don't want to go over 50% of what your credit line is in most cases, because once you start going from 50 to 100%, then all of a sudden that starts sending up some red flags that can actually affect your score as well. But if you keep your balances low, you're paying them off every month, and you're keeping that open to buy good, that can actually make your score look good. And that's actually another reason why you don't want to close old accounts. Where on the bottom right there, it's talking about number 3, because then you have that open to buy, even if you're not using those. it's actually a good thing, because if you start closing them, then you start taking away from the total amount of credit that you're eligible for. So then the next thing you see there is number 3, your length of credit history. So that's why you also want to make sure that your student is actually applying for some credit probably in college, because that's about when we would expect to start seeing some credit history starting and a profile starting to be built. So that's when we may want to see like some of that happening. So the length of the history, though, as you get older, that can work in your favor as far as your FICO goes, though. But we also do want to take a look at, is it logical when the credit started, as far as in your lifespan, or is there any reasons why, like somebody's all of a sudden 30, 40 years old, and then all of a sudden we start seeing their first account. That also may stand up a little bit of a red flag to where we may be asking why, and there could be some good reasons, just move to the country, and so forth. I'll go ahead, and pause there. Emily, looks like you have a question. Yeah, Emily, do you have a question?
Yes, when you're the co-signer.
Yep.
And you're co-signing for the student. Say a payment wasn't, the student didn't pay, is the co-signer's credit hit as well as the student's credit hit at that point, or just the student's credit gets hit?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as the inquiry, if it's a joint account, and both social security numbers are involved, then both are gonna actually probably see the hit. It will typically be the first one, though. So for example, I'm married, and if my name is first on the just on the application, that could be the main one that is shown as an inquiry. But we are both responsible. So if for some reason that account was not being paid well, it'll affect both of our accounts, and it is going to show up on both of our credit bureaus, even if the inquiry is on one or the other. But yeah, the inquiry in itself can actually just bring you down like a little bit. So that's the kind of like number 5 there, accounts for 10% of the score. But yeah, that's why you want to be cautious for sure before you get into, just make sure you understand the kind of like the what you'd be responsible for, legally by doing that. Yeah, it's a good way though. Aside from the secure card, that would be the secondary way to get somebody started with credit, would be to actually add them as the authorized user, which is a little better for you, because then you're in complete control. But what you're saying is that that this person can have a credit card and they can go charge, but I still am taking full responsibility of the account. So you wouldn't be, just so you know that, and then you wouldn't be actually
I just
waiting for
wonder if it would sink both our ships, or my credit would just be fine and theirs would just sink. I guess both of them would go down. I don't know.
Yeah, well, if you're co-signing for somebody that doesn't have great credit, their credit won't necessarily bring yours down, but yours can help bring theirs up, though. Yeah, because their whole credit profile, aside from that account, isn't going to show up on yours. So if they didn't have good credit, then the main I guess chance that you're taking is basically with that account and then moving forward, versus if they had like not so good a credit, because then you could be helping them. But yeah, you want to be like very cautious on that for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. That's a great question. The next slide, we're just going to talk about some different ways that, as a parent and a student, you can think about how you're going to be financing some of the college too. So these are some of the different terms you're going to want to be familiar with, and make sure that they're familiar with. And the first one is the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. And it's just the government form for students or the parents that you have to complete in order to be eligible for the government benefits, like grants, Pell grants and such, state grants, work study funds, and federal student loans. So that's really just a term that you can be familiar with, but as a parent, you may have to fill that out as well. The next one would be the principal and interest. So you want to make sure you're very much aware of what the principal amount might be when you borrow, and what you would need to pay back, and then the interest rates involved. So hopefully it's not, the interest rates aren't too bad, but again, that's, most of us would be familiar. The interest part is going to be that anywhere, maybe 1 to 5% that they're going to be charging for that loan. The next one is federal student loans funded by the government. And these offer good repayment flexibility versus private loans. So the government loans are generally, you can, also possibly put them like in a delay pattern. If like the student is going through, let's say, their MBA or more schooling. So sometimes they can be deferred to a later time to start paying, which is a good thing too. And has some flexibilities. And then another term that you want to be familiar with is just subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So subsidized are the ones if you can show a financial need, and those kind of loans you would get. And then unsubsidized loans, on the other hand, are going to be more widely available, and probably going to have maybe a little bit higher interest, whereas the subsidized may actually have lower interest rates too, because of the financial need involved. And then the last two here are plus loans. And these ones are available to graduate students and parents of dependent undergraduate students. So something that you might be also eligible for. And then the Department of Education is the actual lender on that. And again, it's based on your credit history. So getting back to just this whole presentation and some of the things that Ben discussed, we just talked about your credit and your FICO score. That's one of the reasons why you want to keep it actually as high as possible, is only because when you do need loans, they'll take a look at your credit history, and that can be a basis on how much you get charged for interest. But for the student too, and jumping out into the market, sometimes employers now are even looking at your credit profile. And then also if you need to rent while you're in school, sometimes the places you're renting from and landlords will be looking at your credit history too. So there's a number of reasons actually where I love listening to all the financial gurus out there like Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman. So Dave Ramsey wants you to have a 0 credit score. And I couldn't disagree with him more on that aspect because of things like this. And you want to make sure that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should go borrow, but it does mean that you should have, make sure you have a credit score because of those different things that could be involved. It's just expanding and being used in things other than even just credit cards and credit. And then the last one here is just the private student loans offered by banks and schools. And those ones generally are a little bit probably the easiest to get, but they're also going to have, like, again, a lot less flexibility. Next slide, please. And one of the ways too, just coming from the military background, you want to think about for yourself and possibly if your student would be eligible for any benefits. But this is just covering, make sure you understand the GI Bill that you qualify for. The years of service will, determine which bill you were eligible for at that time. And then just make sure you understand, the benefits that would be involved with that particular GI Bill. one of the good ones, if you look on the right-hand side too, is to think a little more outside the box too, is that the GI Bill can be used for a number of trainings. Not just college, 4-year college, but it can be used for things flight training, certificates, vocational training. So you have a lot of other possibilities with your education with the GI Bill. So the main things here are just to know which GI Bill you should be taking a look at.
Dinner. Okay. If you want it.
Yeah.
If you
And then you want to think about, the possible grants and scholarships that could be specifically geared toward the military. And there's some that your children may be, eligible for as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the last thing here is just comparing different college offers. So this is one of the things that you want to make sure that you're looking at the details when you're comparing maybe a couple colleges and where your child might want to go. One of the things you're going to want to sit down is itemize, kind of like this is set up, and really lay out like which one is going to be the best offer at the end of the day. As you can see, college A costs more possibly in tuition than college B. But then after you start going down through all the fees, room and board, and then scholarships and grants, then it actually ends up being less. So that's why when you're comparing which college to go to, and like Ben mentioned, community college may be definitely much more affordable to start with, especially for some of the lower division credits. But you may want to take a look at it like this and just lay it out. So I'll go ahead and I'll wrap up there. And then we just have one more slide. I'll pass it back over to Ben.
Yeah, thanks. Finally, we're going to talk about how to pay back any student loans that you do have to take out. So won't be getting political at all, but I will say it is not a great idea to depend on the government to pay back your student loans. So, while the recent debt forgiveness is great for anyone that got that benefit, it's typically not something that you would count on to happen again and again. So you should plan on, if you are taking out student loans, you should have a plan on how you can pay those back. So starting with the first one here, make sure you know what you owe. One method that we're going to talk about is the snowball method. So that is where you take every debt that you have, including your student loans, and you list them one of two ways: either from the highest interest rate first or the lowest balance first. Have a little example here to demonstrate that. So let's pretend you have 4 different forms of debt: 2 credit cards, a car payment, and student loans, right? So you list them in this case of order of the highest interest rate up front. As you can see, the minimum payments for each of these total $940 per month. Let's say that in your budgeting you can scrape together $1,000 a month to pay off your debts, right? So rather than taking that extra $60 and spreading it out through these four debts, is you put it on the first one first, right? So instead of paying a $60 minimum payment on that first one, you're paying $120. Eventually, that debt is going to get paid off, and next, you take the $80 minimum payment you were paying before, in addition to the $120 you were paying for the now paid off first debt, and you're paying $200 a month for that second credit card, and that one's going to get paid off even a little bit faster. Do the same thing for the next one, right? So you take that $450 for your car payment that you've been paying all along, and now you add that $200 that you were paying on the credit cards and throw that at the car payment. That's going to get knocked out pretty fast too. And finally, you get down to this last payment. Again, in this instance, it's a student loan, and all of a sudden, instead of paying $350 a month, you're paying nearly 3 times that. You're paying $1,000 a month, so that debt is going to get paid off significantly faster, right? So also another benefit of this is, imagine at the end of it, you don't have any debt, assuming you didn't take out any more debt in this time period. Now you have that $1,000 a month that you were paying on all of those debts, and you can do whatever you see fit with that money, right? You can put it toward savings, you can put it toward entertainment. That $1,000 is now going back into your budget is anything you want it to be. So that's a benefit there. Another strategy, you can consolidate your debt. There's pluses and minuses to this. I would recommend talking with a financial counselor, financial advisor to see if this is right for you. Make sure that you're aware of your repayment plan and see what flexibility there is to pay that off early. And finally, take advantage of employer matches. If you're in like a federal government job, there's some of that, I know, in some other fields as well. Or if again, your employer matches something, make sure that you're taking advantage of that, and tax deductions. Make sure that you're being smart about your tax deductions there. You can claim up to $2,500 in deductions per year on a student loan interest. So make sure that you know all of that. And I see that we are right at time here, so I'm going to leave this slide up. Again, that has both mine and Stu's email addresses. If talking to a financial advisor about your own personal situation is something that you're interested in, feel free to email us, and we will set you up with someone that can help you. All right. So I'll leave this up and ask if there is any questions before we end. All right, not hearing any. So again, thank you all for the opportunity to come and talk to you. We really appreciate it. This is our favorite part of doing our job. So thank you so much. Go ahead, Anthony. Yeah.
Before we run, I think Emily does have a second question. I see her hand raised.
Oh,
again.
yeah. Please, go ahead.
You can unmute that. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
My question is back on the credit cards. When you're talking about how the bank is liable for on the security fraud. So if you put it on your credit card, it's actually good because the bank would be liable for that. So would you recommend on consolidating a lot of your housing bills like rent, electricity, those kind of bills onto a credit card instead of using your checking account?
You know what that is? That is a very great question. And companies like most of the major banks, when we first started reward cards, that was like very common. It didn't take too long before people were like, hey, I'm paying my mortgage. That's like a lot of money. And I can throw that on my credit card. And instead of paying the mortgage, I'll pay that on my credit card. And I'm going to get like 1,000 points like every single month for
Is
doing
that
that.
still a smart thing, or is that illegal or anyway?
Yeah. It's not illegal if the company owes it, but banks did like all of a sudden they caught on to that. But what you can do is you can definitely look like most of the reward cards will offer like certain categories each month where you can actually, let's say 1 month they may offer restaurants and certain kind of retailers that you can go to, and they're going to offer you more points off, or not more points off, but more cash back. And then also like gas, that was a common one. So they may come out like 1 month and say, okay, for the credit card that you have this month, that the main category is gas. So we're gonna give you 5% on that one versus like a normal 3% or 2%. So now they're kind of working it like that, but you're hitting on the right idea there. And that's
Okay.
like somebody smart that's thinking like you there. You know, that is exactly what was happening, and people were like massing, you know, like 100,000 points very quickly, because they decided that if I'm paying everything and I run it through my credit card instead and just pay it there, I'm going to get all those points. So yeah, so the bank, it's not illegal, so don't ever feel, you know, bad about taking advantage of what's there. It's just the bank understood that like maybe they were being too generous in certain categories. So you can't run a mortgage, for example, anymore, like through your credit card
Oh,
like that. Yeah,
yeah.
4 points. Yeah,
Mhm. Okay.
yeah,
I
but
just
that's a
wanted to
great
be
one.
sure. A couple of people talked to me about that, and I said, I really don't know. I don't want to
Mhm.
get anybody in trouble.
Yeah, no, it's not. If the bank offers it, then, and, you know, and we have and we didn't think it through, you know, completely on the way somebody might use it, then that's on us.
All right.
So, yeah, but yeah, take advantage of it. If you use the reward card, though, I mean, absolutely take advantage of what you're entitled to.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, and that's a good point. I'm going to speak out both sides of my mouth here, and build on what Stu said. Talking about, you know, certain cards have different benefits each month. You know, so one credit card that I have, every quarter it changes from, you know, like online shopping to, you know, home improvement to gas or restaurants. I think is the four that it cycles through.
Yeah,
So, you know, you could, and I'll talk about the risk here in a second, but you could get more than one credit card, right? And kind of play that game too. So if you have more than one, and one of those is saying, hey, this month you get more cash back on gas, then obviously, you know, use that when you pay for gas. I am going to talk about the risk of doing that though. And the risk of putting all of your purchases on credit cards. Obviously, yeah, the benefit is you get all those points, you get all those cash back, right? But if you miss a payment and you've run up, you know, $3,000 on your credit card that month, and you miss a payment, boy, those interest rates they're going to hurt, right?
Yeah.
To pay that back. So keep that in mind. It's a risk reward game. If you're the type of person that can manage that, and you know that you're going to pay your credit card bill in full each month, then yeah, take advantage of the benefits. But I'll tell you, just missing one is going to hurt for a long time.
It'll get away
Yeah.
from you fast.
Yeah, that's the key that Ben's
Mhm.
hitting on too, because what you may have gained in 3% cash back, you're gonna miss if you if you even let the like possibly your balance roll over month to month. So let's say you're keeping up on the minimum payment, well, you kind of negate it, you know, if you have a large balance like Ben's saying, but it rolls like the next month, and all of a sudden, you know, for that 3% cash back, now you're paying like maybe a standard 8% or 10%, you know, on your card. Yeah, so that's why you want to understand what they're doing for you, understand, yeah, again, the pros and cons.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this has been great, Ben and Stuart. Thank you so much. We look forward to the next time. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Okay. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you, you
Thanks all.
too.
Bye.